Explain the Badlands. Explain those Badlands. That's a hell of a name.
Mr. Vice President, I'm going off script again, I know, but I just want to personally thank you. We've been through some stuff. We've gone through some of the most complex military operations this country's ever conducted, and your steady hand and your leadership during those was a great source of strength for me. Thank you for your leadership. Thank you for your character. Thank you for your selfless service. Thank you for commitment. Thank you for being a mentor to me, Mr. Vice President.
It's called the swamp. And you know what happened? And you know what I did? A big favor. I caught the swamp. I caught them all. Let's see what happens. Nobody else could have done that but me. I caught all of this corruption that was going on, and nobody else could have done it. Did I get that one right? Every 4 years, we gather on these steps to carry out the orderly and peaceful transfer of power. Today's ceremony, however, has very special meaning, because today we are not merely transferring power from one administration to another, but we are transferring power from Washington, D.C., and giving it back to you, the people. For too long, a small group in our nation's capital has reaped the rewards of government, while the people have borne the cost. Washington flourished, but the people did not share in its wealth. This American carnage stops right here and stops right now. The forgotten men and women of our country will be forgotten no longer. From this day forward, a new vision will govern our land. From this day forward, it's going to be only America first.
This is a president of the United States who is a danger to the republic.
America first.
He knows he's an illegitimate president.
The oath of office I take today is an oath of allegiance to all Americans.
The great Trump recovery.
America will never be a socialist country. I will fight for you with every breath in my body.
Russia, Russian, pro-Russian, Russian, Russia, Russian, 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 the Russians.
Russia.
And I will never, ever let you down.
A dangerous virus is spreading rapidly in China, and U.S. officials are very worried that it could come here.
This is really the worst attack we've ever had. This is worse than Pearl Harbor. This is worse than the World Trade Center. There's never been an attack like this.
The time for empty talk is over. Now arrives the hour of action. What they're doing is using COVID to steal an election. Together, we will make America strong again. You know what it's about? Fraud, fake ballots. We will make America wealthy again. They are trying to steal the election.
Now, under the leadership of President Trump, we are fully realizing President Kennedy's prescient view of Special Operations Forces.
We will make America proud again. And watch, please, those mail-in ballots. We will make America safe again. And in millions and millions of ballots, their vote is under what they thought they needed. They're dumping more ballots in there, okay? And yes, together, we will make America great again. Thank you. God bless you. If we are right about the fraud, Joe Biden can't be president.
Congress, the chair declares the joint session dissolved.
All right. Good evening, everybody, and welcome to the Wednesday edition of the Devolution Power Hour. Got to tell you guys up front, this is a pre-record, and I apologize, but we're going to GART this week, and I'm leaving tomorrow. Are you leaving tomorrow?
No, what is tomorrow? Well, tomorrow from when they're watching this, but...
Well, let's not get into the time confusion. Are you leaving Wednesday?
Days. No.
Okay,
Thursday.
So you're leaving Thursday. Okay, well, that's lame.
Yeah. Yeah. Too
But
crazy.
Anyway, so apologies in advance for not only it being a pre-record, but also this is going to be one of the shorter episodes of a Devolution Power Hour. It might actually be a power hour for once. Like we might actually stick to the name.
For the first time ever.
Yeah, for the first time ever, we're going to stick to the hour. Reason being is I'm just absolutely exhausted. This has been an emotionally and just physically and everything exhausting. Mentally, it's just been exhausting. And I want to kind of get a decent night's sleep because I've traveled in tomorrow and then GART. And I know you just got done recording Story Hour with Story Hour.
See if my voice stays.
Yeah, so we are going to pretty much spend this whole episode talking about these recent appointments because they're interesting, they're confusing. We want to talk it out. We're just gonna. It's early, so it's not even been like 24 hours for some of these. But we're gonna try to see if we can figure out why and understand a little bit what might be going on here. But before we do any of that, I want to get to a little housekeeping with a couple of our sponsors real quick. First up, we got American Finance. American Finance. The Fed has dropped interest rates, so you need to call on my friends at American Financing today. Now is the perfect time to consolidate debt and reduce your monthly expenses. A lot of us have been forced to use credit cards because of the ridiculous prices at the grocery store, power, and even childcare. The debt is really expensive, with credit card rates being insanely high, but with mortgage rates dropping, now is the time to wipe that debt out. American Financing is helping homeowners just like you save over $800 a month on average. They're even closing some in as fast as 10 days. And if you start today, you may delay 2 mortgage payments. There are no upfront fees. To find out how much you can save, call American Financing today, 866-889-5154. That's 866-889-5154, or visit americanfinancing.net/devolution. NMLS 182334, NMLSconsumeraccess.org. And I am all about free ways to save money. You can call a place, no fees, just check to see if they can save you money. Like that's like a no-brainer. Love those deals. Second sponsor of tonight's show is EasyRx. Our good friends and partners over at EasyRx want to help you in this time of need. With government failures and devastation running rampant, it's never been a better time to stockpile popular medications like amoxicillin, azithromycin, ivermectin, fenbendazole, hydroxychloroquine, and all sorts of other viral care medications. EasyRx wants to help you in such a time as this. For a limited time, Badlanders will receive 25% off purchases over $100 using promo code Black Friday. Rest assured that you and your loved ones are ready for anything with EasyRx. Go to badlandsmedia.tv/EasyRx and use promo code Black Friday for 25% off those purchases over $100. Stock up on those antibiotics, guys. Keep you and your family prepared and healthy. It's badlandsmedia.tv/EasyRx, promo code Black Friday. Then our last housekeeping thing before we get into the discussion about the appointments. Just want to show you guys this real quick because we got our panel topics ready for GART this week. They're up on, I post them on social media. They're up on our website, I think now too. Cannot wait for this conference. Starting Thursday is when we're going to do the VIP dinner. We'll be streaming from there. Then Friday starts the panels. Q after election, navigating TDS relationships, battling false decorum, retribution, revenge, and catharsis, digital software, imagining the DOGE. Speaking of appointments, Elon Musk and Vivek.
They did that to set us up. They're giving us an assist for GART. We appreciate it, guys. We see it.
Yep. Informed consent to govern and government legitimacy, media and its future, game theory in the 2020 election, and American energy and the coming golden age. I think this is our best lineup for topics to date. So
I like
very
that
excited.
Deadwood marked a shift in how we do these things, I think in a good way. And we really are trying to do, I mean, these are all broad topics, but they're more specific than it used to be. We used to do, when we were first trying this out, we would do things like culture and politics, right? But now we're trying to be like, let's go hard on something something more specific, and then you get some different discussions. One of the coolest things, even for me as a speaker at these events, that I wouldn't have thought about going into them, is that you're going to see different mixes of Badlands hosts bouncing off each other or arguing with each other. If I'm there, then it's going to be that. And it always makes for just interesting new concoctions of hosts and personalities, which I like.
Yeah, I like that too. But the virtual ticket guys, I mean, I obviously haven't attended a GART via virtual ticket yet, but everybody I talk to who has, they love it. They all say it's well worth it. And most of them actually end up like at some point trying to get a in-person ticket. And that's what's been really cool. So, and everybody who comes to one always wants to come back. These conferences are a great experience. And the reason we do these is to further strengthen and build out our community. And that's what it's all about. And one of my favorite things I think that you get with this virtual ticket outside of the content and behind the scenes stuff is you get access to a chat group that we have in Telegram just for GART ticket holders. And it pretty much goes, it'll probably be like 6 months till this one shuts down and it consolidates with some previous ones. And then it just rolls into the next GART chat and it keeps going. And it's a great way to stay connected to people in our community, like-minded people. Yeah. So, but not only, go ahead.
Sorry, I've said a few times, as John just said, I was most nervous about whether or not the virtual tickets are good because we can't tell because we're there. Yeah. But to John's point, literally almost every single new person who comes up to me at a GART who I haven't seen before says that they had previously watched a virtual, which made them want to go. So that has to be a good sign.
Yep. So anyway, the virtual ticket, you get all panels, both live and they'll be available for you on replay. And we get those up as quickly as we can. In the past, it was at the end of the day. Now we're trying to do midday over lunch breaks and stuff. So you get them right away. Access to that exclusive chat. You get to actually ask questions to the panel live through that chat. So that's one of the cool things we try to make engaging for everybody. There's behind the scenes content and early access to tickets for future GARTs.
Oh, right. So. Yeah. I think you only just started talking about that. So yeah, you guys have obviously seen, we've got the tour dates for 2025 out there, but tickets are not available. So if you have virtual or in person to Myrtle, you will be the first that will be sent purchase links for Vegas, which is in March.
Yep.
This one sold out. The other ones had not sold out yet, so you might not have felt like it was a big deal to be in there first. But hey, Myrtle Beach sold out, so Vegas could also sell out, and you can get to the front of the line there.
Absolutely. So get those tickets, badlandsmedia.tv/events. All right. Let's talk about the appointment stuff, because, I mean, honestly, this whole thing has been weird. And that's honestly the best way to put it. The most simplest way I can describe it is weird. And it's for numerous reasons, but I think I may have an idea of what's going on here, but I want to talk it out. So first of all, I'm weirded out by the timing. Like, this seems really fast, fast. I looked back, and I only did this for one pick, and it was his previous Secretary of Defense. And he didn't get named till like December 1st. He didn't name Mattis until December 1st, and even then it was like still a rumor. It wasn't official yet, but that was like the first article I could find having to do with Trump naming a Secretary of Defense back in 2016 after he was the nominee. He's named these within it's the 12th of November right now, so he's like 20 days early, and so that part of it feels weird. But it's also the names that he's coming out with. I was targeting a lot of these like administration picks, to kind of get insight into like where we're at with this operation that we think is going on behind the scenes, right? Like, are we going to see just like a whole shit ton of carryover from the end of Trump's administration, or is he going to like take it, or is it going to be more like a reconstitution type team, right? Because like that is a separate team compared to a continuity team if you go by the playbook of what continuity government means. And so I was really keen in on some of this stuff, and so far we have one person that was previously in Trump's administration, now going to be in the second one, and he's in a different role, although similar. D&I Ratcliffe is now director of the CIA Ratcliffe. But let's take a look at the full list so far and see what we can figure out here. VP Vance, already knew that. Chief of Staff Wiles, we talked about that a little bit on Saturday's Power Hour. So those we already knew. but these last 2 days is where it's gotten weird. We got Zeldin EPA. Don't hate that at all.
Yep.
Stefanik as an ambassador. Nothing really wrong with that. I don't really have feelings about either of those two picks either way.
Yeah.
It's these next four that I kind of want to dissect a little bit. Let's start with, I don't even know which one of these.
Isn't Rubio not confirmed yet?
Yeah, Trump has not confirmed Rubio, but he has confirmed Pete Hegseth as the Secretary of Defense.
Yeah.
Noam as the Department of Homeland Security, and Ratcliffe as CIA director.
Yeah, just wanted to be clear about Rubio, because I could see some swerves coming up here with Trump.
I could too.
The false leaks.
I could definitely see that too. And this is what I said yesterday. Before any of these people were confirmed, these four, I was like, okay, there's reports coming out from the New York Times, Maggie Haberman of all people, and it was all based on anonymous sourcing. Like anonymous sourcing, familiar with the conversations, say that Trump has picked Rubio and Noam to be these picks. I was like, there's no way. There's no way. Yeah. Like, it's not that I don't trust Trump for his choices or whatever. It's just I had no idea.
Surprising. Yeah.
Nowhere in the realm of possibility did I ever expect these two names. And so I was like, let's just hold on until Trump confirms this himself. These are fake news, right? Yep. Not even weighing in on whether or not I like the pick or whatever. And then sure enough, today we get these. And really the only one I'm like super excited about is Ratcliffe again. So maybe we should start there quick and then go into the rest.
Let's start with Ratcliffe, because that's the one that was the most signal to me. I mean, the way I've been thinking of all of this, accepting that I think there's going to be some swerves. I kind of put a post out earlier saying the way we feel sort of off balance about this, I'm really excited admitting that I don't know what the purpose is with some of these, or like the why behind them.
Yeah.
But imagine if you're the deep state looking at this, it feels to me like some combination of trolling versus also silent running. Like, that's what it's made me think of. There might be some of these people that don't end up in these positions, even the ones that Trump has said, because again, they're not in the positions even after Trump confirms it until they're confirmed, right? Like they're not officially in.
But day one, they're acting until they get confirmed, and acting still has the full weight and force and power of.
But it's not day one yet, is my point, right? We're not there, and we still leave open. Long ways to go. Like, it's entirely possible that we enter a period of chaos many people have projected, and that gives Trump the public mandate to totally shuffle this whole board here, right? So right now, these are narrative deployments to me, even the ones that Trump is saying, this is my person for this role. But yeah, Ratcliffe is the one that has devolution written all over it. And it's interesting that you use the word, continuity with the first, I know you were saying in the context of the first administration, but Ratcliffe carries with it that double meaning of continuity. And I think it's, that's like a bat signal to devolution people, to Q people, that guy is being elevated to CIA director.
I mean, technically, based on what he was before, this is a demotion.
Well, yeah. I mean, him being put there feels like such a shot across the bow, more than a shot across the bow. I mean, to me, that feels like a declaration of war on swamp creatures.
Yeah. So you previously being the DA guy, like he wasn't in there all that long. It was like maybe a year or so. I don't even remember the exact details. I probably should have looked that up, and I can right now. But this guy, we keyed in on him a lot during the Devo series because he was a part of a lot of like really devolution-y things. Like, he was the one that he released a lot of memos and declassified a lot of memos. See, my tiredness is coming through. I can't even speak correctly. But he was very valuable to Trump in that role as DNI. He was there when Space Force got elevated to the 17th or 18th intel agency. He was there. He was the one who, with the election fraud stuff on January 7th, when Executive Order 13848 required the assessment and it came out, even though it was late, like 3 weeks late, came out after January 6th. He was the only one that came out and said, no, I disagree. There was election interference. I agree with the NIO from cyber, like Trump's ally through and through. He was the one who rode on the plane. Oh yeah, right here. I have the clip. He rode on the helicopter with Trump to the Army-Navy football game on December 13th or December 12th. That helicopter and that day is still his, image on Twitter. There's Chris Miller. It was the next day that Trump tweeted about the election being in protest. The CIA has been very targeted by Trump and like very narratively like center of attention for all the bullshit that's going on. We've talked about them a lot as being like the enemy of everything behind a lot of this stuff, like almost like the military, the militant branch of the deep state.
Yeah.
And now
I refer to them as the kinetic arm. Like we talk about different forms of power projection. We've got the narrative power, which is the media. We've got the political power, which is politicians. The CIA has felt like that is the kinetic arm of the deep state.
Yeah, and what's interesting about this too is like I posted about Ratcliffe being the guy, and there's a couple comments. One of them was from Dirk McGurkin. He's like, "Why do we need somebody at the head of an agency we're just going to dismantle anyway?" And my thought and how I responded to him was, well, Trump being a real estate guy, sometimes there's more value in like conducting a remodel than just completely demolishing and starting from scratch. And maybe that's what we're doing. Or maybe like this goes back to some of the classified documents that were missing, the binder that's missing, and who knows what. And you put this guy in the CIA and all of a sudden those documents appear again. Like we don't know the specifics behind this, but I can see a lot of like game theory reasonings for why you would put a former DNI, demote him in a lot of sense, but into a role like this. Like he's a Trump loyalist. He's going to do whatever needs to be done there. I love this pick.
Yeah, and for me, outside of Devolution, Q drops, whatever, let's just go based on the public story, the public narrative of these people and of these moves. With Ratcliffe in particular, I saw a lot of stuff going around on Twitter tonight. People in our Badlands chat. Ratcliffe is, along with, Kash Patel and Ezra Cohen-Watnick, I would say, the most publicly militant about declassification, right? So, of course, it makes sense to some degree. Director of National Intelligence. You want to talk about who knows where the bodies are buried. Ratcliffe is one of those guys. That's why I see these deployments, a lot of them as alternatively, I shouldn't say alternatively, they're simultaneously trolling the deep state while telling them that they're fucked. I really think that that's what's going on with some of these, even with one of the other picks that I think you initially had a weird reaction to as well as I did, that might be more based than we thought. We'll get to him with SecDef, right? But with Ratcliffe, think of it from the perspective. Let's imagine you're a swamp creature in the CIA. Mm-hmm. We know that there's a lot of them there. We also know that there's good people there. And Kash Patel, to his credit, he's been hammering this longer than anybody of saying, like, guys, to your restoration or remodeling point, he has been reminding us for years, like, most of those guys are patriots. It is the vast majority of them. But imagine you're not one of those patriots. And now DNI Ratcliffe, and all of his public statements and what he's said the American people need and accountability and declassification. And he's gladly accepting what you're saying is a demotion. Why is he doing that? He's there for a reason, and I don't think it's going to be good for them.
Yeah, on a more macro level, like getting away just from Ratcliffe, like he's probably a pretty well-known name because he was in the previous administration. I would say Zeldin's a fairly well-known name. These picks, like he could be trolling, he could be doing some leak checks to see what's going on. But what I found funny is, so Ghost in our chat, in our private like Badlands group chat that we have going on, that everybody engaged in, we spitball, we throw shit back and forth, we goof off. It's good fun. But he sent a picture of a text exchange he had with his mom, and she was like, Pete Hegseth has been named the Secretary of Defense. Fox just announced. And he's like, no, she hasn't, Mom. Like, and then like, gosh, these boomers, I can't believe them. And then I went and looked at True Social, and sure enough, like it was out and posted. And like, we couldn't believe it. Like, what the hell? But like his mom was super excited about the pick. Okay. Mm-hmm. And then a little bit later, it got announced that DHS Nome was going to be the DJ, like officially announced. And my mom sent me a picture. Like, she's a South Dakota lady. She's like, oh my God, I really love this pick for Department of Homeland Security. Like, South Dakota girl.
That's interesting.
Yeah. And then so I'm just thinking here, like, if you're Trump, this second administration, you want people that are going to be loyal no matter what. Because at this point, turning against Trump is like your own poison pill. You are dead to the MAGA movement, and it's very obvious right now that MAGA and America First is where this country's going. So if you're going to go against that at any point, like you are completely ruining your political aspirations and political future. I can see every one of these people, even Hegseth, pretty much every one of these people, Hegseth, Noam, Rubio, Ratcliffe, Zeldin, Stefanik, every one of these people wants a career in MAGA government in the future.
They're pretty young too. Most of them are pretty young.
Yeah, not a single one of these people I could see betraying Trump. Yep. And that's, I think, like almost like the bottom line of what Trump needs in this administration, because you can't have anybody subverting you when you have 4 years to pretty much transform our entire government and its structure and everything. And so that's like baseline one. I see that in every one of these people. But the second bonus to this is like some of these names are very publicly recognizable, and like they're exciting the normies, because nobody's going to get excited about Christopher Miller being
right. We will. This audience will, but normies are like, excuse me, what?
Yeah, like normally when a president puts out their cabinet picks, like nobody's ever heard of these people before. This is different. Everybody knows Pete Hegseth, like very recognizable name, and everybody knows Noam. Like all these people are recognizable to the normie, and I feel like that has played a role in these decisions. I'm not 100% sure why yet, but I think that's important.
I think it's absolutely important. I love those anecdotes with Ghost and with you. And, it's not to belittle that stuff. It's to say, I mean, I think you're bang on. I was gonna go bicameral with this. I think you can have it two ways that are both really exciting to me. Any scenario that I map, I will admit my bias, comes from the perspective that whether this ends up being the final roster or not, Trump is deploying these narratives for a good reason, and Trump and his team know what they're doing, right? Like, it's kind of a prerequisite. I'm glad to see even some of the Badlanders that are like, I don't like these picks, but he must have a reason for doing it. That's not a stupid faith-based approach. That's because we have observed Donald Trump, devolution, Q drops, through this whole era. If he's doing something, there's a fucking reason he's doing it. So you're going to see the Doom Brigade out there about like anything he's doing. But we should still look at these picks critically, right? Yeah. Two ways of looking at it. The narrative layer is exactly what you're hitting on that I think is really interesting. I sort of believe that whatever the second Trump administration is going to do, in keeping with the devolution theory, it's a military operation. It goes back to Trump's inauguration address. That's the intro to this show. Trump says he's returning power to we, the American people. Do I think that process of returning power to we, the American people, is dependent on who he selects as chief of staff or as DHS or as CIA director? I do not. I don't believe it's even possible that this plan could be fumbled by putting the wrong person in there, right? So that's one angle of it. These people may literally be being put into narrative positions. The funny thing about that is that we already know that is absolutely the case with picks like Elon Musk and Vivek Ramaswamy with the Department of Government Efficiency, which is not a real thing. I know it's going to become a real thing, but I don't believe that Vivek and Elon are going to actually be making changes to the government. I think the story is going to be that they are, but why? It's the anecdotes you mentioned. Normies know who all these people are. They engage with the story. That makes them engage with the process. And then one more point on it would be the other way of looking at it that we'll never know. When did Hegseth become a prominent American media figure? During the age of Trump. When did these people become prominent public figures? During the age of Trump. Q followers and Anons often talk about infiltration goes both ways. Infiltration over invasion, right? Is it hard to believe that if this plan has been mapped out long enough, that a guy like Hegseth was placed into the American media in order to familiarize the American people with him? Right? Like, we look at this as going like, Trump picked this Fox News guy. Well, is that really what he did? Or does he know exactly who this guy is, to your point? and he knows exactly how to project his future behavior.
Well, it's interesting with Hegseth too. He was looked at in 2016 to be the head of Trump's VA, like Department
really?
of
I
VA,
didn't know
whatever.
that.
Yeah, but he came down to the final two, and he revealed this during the Sean Ryan interview that he did, and he ended up not getting picked. But then he goes on to Fox News, all these things, and we'll get a little deeper into him. But I want to make one more point before we go on with this. So what we think has been going on for the last 4 years, right, since Trump had the election stolen and walked away, implemented some sort of continuity government, behind the scenes stuff, everything done through devolution and Q or whatever has all been done behind the scenes, right?
Yeah.
We speculate about who might be involved, all these things, but it's been the guardrails that have been keeping us safe, and who knows what else has been going on behind the scenes. We pick apart the circumstantial evidence when we think we see it and all these things, but that can still be the case with whatever is actually being carried out now too. It's just that now Trump is back in narrative control, and what you said there about it's engaging the normies in the process. That's exactly what Trump needs if he's going to do all these things. And we should listen to Pete Hegseth. I got a couple clips here from some interviews that he's done. I think it was the Sean Ryan stuff. Yeah, here's a good one. Let's take a listen to him. Because I literally never cared for mainstream media, and so I never watched
guy was
them.
not on my radar.
Not at all on mine either. But listening to the Sean Ryan interview, which the timing of this is interesting too, because this just came out pretty recently, and now it's
well, especially to your point there on the Sean Ryan thing. Look at the narrative deployments. That's exactly what they were, of Donald Trump, Elon Musk, and JD Vance on Joe Rogan, and going through this whole new media space that, even if it's not as deep as these layers, on Rumble, extremely wide audience.
Yep. And oh man, I had a good point, but I forgot it.
Sean Ryan.
Oh, the book. He just wrote a book recently too.
Okay.
And
War on the Warriors.
Yep. And I think that is interesting too, the timing of that. And now he's going into the political life. And honestly, if he's as base as he appears and Secretary of Defense, this could be the future mega right here. This could be the guy after Trump, 2028. Who knows? Who knows? But we have a long way to go, like we said, but let's listen to this, because I found this to be very much it's almost like the Department of Government Efficiency version for the Secretary of Defense, what he says here.
There's a chance to course correct it, but it would take the new Trump administration going after it really hard.
How would they correct it?
Well, first of all, you got to fire, you got to fire the chairman of the Joint Chiefs, and you got to fire this. Obviously you're going to bring in a new Secretary of Defense, but any general that was involved, general, admiral, whatever, that was involved in any of the DEI woke shit, it's got to go. Either you're in for war fighting, and that's it. And that's the only litmus test we care about. You got to get DEI and CRT out of military academies, so you're not training young officers to be baptized in this type of thinking. And then, whatever the standards, whatever the combat standards were, say, in, 1995, let's just make those the standards. And as far as recruiting, to hire the guy that, did Top Gun Maverick and create some real ads that motivate people to want to serve. And there's lots of other ways in which you could identify who gets promoted and what, but there's an ethos change. There's a reason people don't want to serve, because they don't trust that their senior leaders are going to have their best interest in mind in combat. I know there were mistakes made on our tours all over the place, but I, at least for the most part, had a sense that my senior leaders were committed to the completion of the mission for the right reasons. And maybe there were strategic differences and all that other stuff, and it wasn't always perfect, but that trust is broken, and you have to reestablish that trust by putting in no nonsense warfighters in those positions who aren't going to cater to the socially correct garbage.
You know what this so much feels like right now? This is a change of phase of operate. This is a new phase of the operation. We were in continuity government, whatever it was before, and now we're in the reconstitution phase, and it's the rebuilding and restructuring and everything across the board. And everything you just said there was, it got my, so-called Jimmy's definitely rustling.
Yeah, and it's, again, we have to look at all these things from multiple angles, but you got to sometimes take these things on their face, especially after it's codified by Donald Trump in terms of this is his will, this is his political will, right? And I think that what I said earlier, we too often we see things in a linear manner. That's how humans think, right? So they think Pete Hegseth, some guy, obviously he was a veteran. Then he's a Fox News host, right? So then he becomes cemented. That's what he is to people like us. He's a Fox News host. Okay, but look at the timing. And then you reverse engineer that and you see, so you just said, it makes me think of it even more to lead into that segment. You're saying, so he was up for a role in Trump 1.0. He just didn't quite get it, huh? And then he ends up as a prominent figure all of a sudden on Fox News, and all the MAGA moms love him, and he's talking. And what does that give him when he's on Fox News? Pure narrative shielding, where he can talk about all of these things in an honest manner because he's not in a military or administrative active role. He's in a civilian role. And it makes me think of all the different ways you can take civilian-military alliance and those comms and the Q drops. I don't think that's just referring to Anons. I think that's referring, who another pick is that makes me think of civilian-military alliance? Stephen Miller. America First Legal, right? Trump's bringing all these guys in who were serving in civilian roles during devolution, and now they're coming back in. And then the other thing he says in that clip that really got my jimmies rustling, right before this show, Chris and I did 13 Days, the story about the Cuban Missile Crisis and the Kennedy brothers. Robert Kennedy marched into the Oval Office, we're told, according to the central narrative, after the Joint Chiefs wanted to compel John to invade Cuba or to bomb Cuba, and said, "Can the fucking Chiefs?" That's why Robert Kennedy was known as like the bloodhound hunter in the Kennedy administration. Robert Kennedy, unironically, wanted to fire all of the Joint Chiefs of Staff and every general in the United States. He wanted
incited the erection.
Sorry.
So people like me and psychos that go back to the Kennedy administration have been saying the Donald Trump administration is the Kennedy administration that we never got. They have all the same policies, and Hegseth might as well have just transported himself to 1962 and given a Robert Kennedy speech about purging the military. And to show you, the article I found before the show on Hegseth is pretty interesting.
Yeah, I want to show you a couple things too after this.
Just on the note, if you think of what I just said about Robert Kennedy and Can the Chiefs and what the clip you just played of Hegseth, this is a reverse indicator, people. Yep. The current military-industrial complex does not want this dude anywhere near them. And now why would that be?
Check this out. Even better. Hegseth has been active in conservative and Republican politics since his days as an undergraduate at Princeton University. In 2016, he emerged as a strong supporter and ally of Donald Trump's presidential candidacy and served as an occasional advisor to Trump throughout the latest presidency. He reportedly persuaded Trump to pardon 3 American soldiers accused or convicted of war crimes related to the shooting of non-combatants in Iraq. Hegseth, who was a platoon leader at Guantanamo Bay during his military service, defended the treatment of the inmates detained there. It's like, fuck these terrorists. And then also, Hegseth was considered to lead the Department of Veterans Affairs in the first Trump administration prior to the selection of David Shulkin. Much like Tucker Carlson being denied access to the CIA, going on to become this just huge, media figure, Hegseth being denied the, Secretary of Veterans Affairs goes on to be a media figure as well. It's just interesting how that works. In November, he was announced as Secretary of Defense. So yeah, this is a very, very interesting pick. And there's another clip I want to play of his, because this is another really good one. I think this is the one. Let me play this.
So I spent the better part of a year and a half talking to vets, and not just vets, but connecting through a network of a lot of guys I know. I host my show on Friday, Saturday, and Sunday in New York. So I've got Saturday afternoon wide open. And I spent for months my Saturdays just on the phone, off the record, anonymously with guys in service. So senior listed, junior officers, senior officers, all branches, MOSs, eras, but mostly guys in right now, generals, privates. And all the same themes came out. Standards are dropping. The woke stuff is everywhere. I feel like I'm walking on eggshells. I heard that all the time. Eggshells. I'm a commander. I walk on eggshells. I train commanders. They're walking on eggshells. They're afraid of one misstep on one identification or one gender thing or one racial thing or one trans thing. And the priorities are upside down on what the units are focusing on. And every single one of those distractions means we're less good at our job, which is supposed to be closed with to destroy the enemy on behalf of our nation and bring our boys home. That's all I care about. That's what I want a military focused on. And so, yeah, I tell a few of my own stories in the book, but the book's not about me at all.
How do you think that this is happening?
Well, it's a long story. So I think it's because they're ideologues who want to bring a meritocracy to heel. That's where I think it starts. I think you have...
He's like essentially talking about the deep state here.
Yeah.
Without specifically mentioning the deep state.
Politicians.
It's a long story.
Don't tolerate
an
institution. First, they want to use it to tinker. And then they also don't want to tolerate an institution that's antithetical to their social experiments. Because the military, the book lays this out. Of course, like the integration of the military racially was a huge success. It was a huge success because Black men and Hispanic men and others can perform just as well as white guys in any capacity that they're given. So the reality of life reinforced that the bigotry we saw on the outside should not be tolerated inside the military. And the military did a great job doing that. But now we're pushing boundaries on lots of different levels that are different than that because men and women are different. Because being transgendered in the military causes complications and differences. And the book kind of lays out the common arguments that those on the left or others make, which are baked in social justice. So it started, we saw it under Clinton with the tinkering of Don't Ask, Don't Tell and the reasons for those changes. And I talked to some of the people involved in when that was changed. But it really started to accelerate under Obama. And you saw the trans stuff come at the end of the Obama administration. You saw the women in combat come at the end of the Obama administration. It's because they looked around at the bureaucracies that they controlled in Washington and the one that was that they didn't control. Obama spent a disproportionate amount of time focusing on the Pentagon. They were skeptical of leadership and eventually brought in political appointees and generals who would do their bidding the way they wanted, which, as you know, in a top-down organization changes the ethos of the whole thing. So the book is meant to pull the whole curtain back, mostly from Obama forward, and explain how the army that I enlisted in, or that I swore an oath in 2001 and was commissioned in 2003, looks a lot different than the army of today because we're focused on a lot of the wrong things.
Yeah, one thing I keep thinking about when it comes to these picks, like trying to make sense of them. I know everybody here, honestly, when you see every one of these picks, you're like, what the fuck is Trump doing? Like, we all have our own confirmation bias. Like mine is obviously like, okay, devolution's in play. How is this going to unfold? I'm trying to understand how these picks fit into like that mold because like the evidence is there. Where are we at now with the new phase of what's happening here in this narrative warfare and everything going on? And it's so hard to like get past the confirmation bias that you have of like what you expect and what you think and like, but this pick is the Hegseth pick. At first I was almost most excited, not even almost, I was most excited about Ratcliffe.
Yeah.
But the more I dig on Hegseth, he's so good. It's the Trump mold. And it's interesting too, like he's nobody you would expect. Nobody saw this coming. No. But when you dig back the layers of like who he actually is and what he did, and like he looks on the surface level, and not even the surface level, like under the surface level, he looks perfect for this role of, if you're going to Department of Government Efficiency the entire government, including the military, like he's coming in, he wants to fire any general that touched the woke stuff. He wants to clean house, get rid of it all, and focus on like what we're actually supposed to do, which is fight our wars, win the wars, be prepared to win the wars, and bring our soldiers home. And that's like right in line with what Trump wants to do. It's great.
This is it. What's so exciting to me about it is, when I mentioned Bobby Kennedy, it's the info war is fought on all these different layers. Like I often call them translation layers. And I'll never be able to prove this, but listening to his comments there in particular is an example of what I mean. I'm one of those people that doesn't believe that the U.S. military, including its leadership, is anywhere near as woke and retarded as they have been portrayed to be. But I believe they have been portrayed to be that way by Ghost in the Machine in order to expose the rot within the military, right? I'm not saying that there aren't any of them. I'm just saying that I don't think that the military is falling apart because it's woke and because there's trannies. I think this is a translation layer. How do you get the mandate from the American people, which is to say Normieville, to reform and purge and strengthen the U.S. military. Well, 8 years of narrative warfare, quote unquote, exposing them all as woke tranny lovers, is probably going to get that mandate from normal Americans.
Yeah.
But I think there's enough comms beneath the surface there of Hegseth saying people in this community, in this audience, understand the real rot of the military. But imagine, I know people will be like, I want full transparency, I want full honesty. Well, this goes back to what I think about the choice to know will be yours comms and the Q drops and why it's framed that way. Imagine a different framing of Hegseth's comments there. Imagine he goes into that interview and they're like, what do you want to do with the Joint Chiefs? I want to fire the Joint Chiefs of Staff. Why, Hegseth? Because they're part of the deep state. They've been running illegal psychological operations on Americans. They got us in all these wars. Like, it's not going to work, right? It's not. You will immediately be. Everyone will go, oh my God, there are lunatics coming into the White House that think the generals are the deep state, and they're going to fire the deep state, right? Yeah. So that's kind of how I see it. Like, he's saying the same thing Bobby Kennedy was saying, but in the 60s, Kennedy was just telling the truth as he saw it, which was like, these guys are not your friend. They're trying to get you into war with Russia. And honestly, a lot of the American people didn't believe him, especially veterans hated the Kennedy brothers because they saw them as anti-military. Trump has to somehow navigate essentially purging the military chain of command while being seen as a military favorable or military friendly president. And how do you do that? You tell the military, I'm not going after the Joint Chiefs. I'm only going after the woke ones, right? Yep. Which I think means the deep state ones.
And that's interesting too, because like, if you think back to what the Biden administration did and Secretary Lloyd Austin, like they wanted to, purge the Trump supporters from the military. But look at Trump's like time here as in a whole, like the whole operation from, let's just start at 2016. Okay. He gets in there, not even before he gets in there, shenanigans ensue. They stonewall like the whole Russiagate stuff. He allows that all to play out. Is what it is. But if you almost look at that, like the people he allowed to, based on the recommendation of whoever, I'm going to make McMaster as the NSA after Flynn, or Mattis as the first Secretary of Defense, all these things. And looking back, it's like, wow, that was, not the best choice he could have made. That guy didn't appear to be, the best pick, whatever. Hindsight is always 2020. So it's easy to say that now. But if you look at it in a different lens of like, okay, maybe there's more to this story, right? Which we obviously all believe there is. If you look at the first term as like a mapping operation, like you're mapping out how pervasive the cancer here in our government is in every agency. Right. You're going to promote the people that are recommended by the establishment. You're going to promote the deep state people, even though they're deep state. You're going to let them do some bullshit, whatever. You put the people right there at the end that you need to establish some sort of guardrail operation. And then now, after that guardrail operation, you have one term left. What's this term about? What's the focus of this term? Like you go into this thing promising to give America back to the people. This is the term you do it. And now you know where everybody is. You mapped it out in the first term. You probably got more of an education on that even while Biden was in there and you're the guardrails. And now you fucking clean house. You get your loyalists in there. The people that aren't in here for anything other than actually just serving their country. Somebody like a Pete Hegseth, who that's what he appears like on the surface. Dina Ratcliffe proven himself. Rubio, if that comes true, I'd be surprised. But if it does, whatever. But every one of these picks I could see being like, okay, this person knows what's up. Like even look at Noam. Look at this.
Yeah.
Noam at one point, she called the two newly elected Democratic senators from Georgia, Ossoff and Warnock. This is back in 2021. She'll call them communists. That's like, that's pretty fucking based, if you ask me. Like,
now, when did Noam's political career begin? This isn't rhetorical. I don't know.
I saw this earlier in here.
Like her entry into national politics. I'm kind of curious about.
Well, she was South Dakota stuff back in 2006. So for 4 years, she ran for
So this is all state. 2012, 2014.
Yep. So she won.
I mean, I know it's state the whole way through, but I'm wondering when she. I'm trying to remember when
No, this
she
is
really
House of
made
Representatives.
national.
It says 2010, 2012.
Oh, right.
No one was reelected to a second term, to the House. Third term to the House. Fourth term to the House. So I don't remember her being in Congress, but whatever. And then she ran for governor in 2018, 2022. And then presidential politics. She got behind Trump. And she's just been kind of like on the fringe of Trump's, of the radar. Like some people thought she might even be a running mate for a while.
Yeah, well, what's interesting, the reason I was curious about just the timeline there, it's not so much about the actual timeline of her politics, it's more about the narrative timeline of her politics. So for me, as a Massachusetts person, one of the things I've said for a few years is I think one of the biggest disclosures that came out of the COVID lockdown era was forcing Americans, all Americans, including us, to not just be familiar with the US government and its policies in the administrative state, but who the fuck is your governor and who's everybody's governors? I mean, we talked about governors from 2020 to 2023 more than I would say at any point in American history.
Yep.
And think of how that era of narrative changed or morphed the perception of not just governor powers to the American people just on as a template, but individual governors. Think of the catastrophic narrative damage that governors like Gavin Newsom, Gretchen Whitmer, who's the one, J.B. Pritzker, like those, we already didn't like them just partisanly. But normal Americans hate Gavin Newsom now. And it's a result of the COVID era.
Yeah.
I would have gone through my entire life, even in the info war, never knowing who Kristi Noem was if it wasn't for COVID. Because she was considered the best governor in COVID in the United States, right? So it's like, again, when I mentioned about Hegseth, and this is, like you said, it's hindsight, right? This is us reverse engineering. We didn't know this stuff at the time. But isn't it interesting that Kristi Noem, how does she become known, not to somebody in South Dakota, how did she become famous to somebody in Dallas? By not bowing down to the authoritarian communists during the lockdown era.
Yeah.
And now when she enters the national scene in a major role for the US, normal Americans know that she does not cave to that kind of pressure. And it just makes you wonder, was that an unofficial audition and that's why Trump selected her? Or do some of these picks go back further and, Trump and team have known who these people are a little bit longer?
Yeah. I keep coming back to the normie mindset. And I don't want to call my mom a normie because I don't think she is, but
yeah,
like she follows Badlands. She's been to the conferences. She won't be at guard. She's upset. She's sad. She won't be there, but she'll text me now and then about like random things, but this was like a first, like of her texting me something like this, like she'll text me crazy news that like everybody's talking about, of course, but this is the first time she's like texted me something like, oh my God, I'm so happy about this. Normally she's like asking a question, right? And
yeah,
she sent a picture.
Appointment.
She sent a picture. Let me put this up on, I don't want to like dox anything here. She sent me this picture from Newsmax, like Facebook, which, by the way, guys, there is a John Harold on Facebook. If you could all go report him, he's the one talking about the quantum financial system. That is not me.
That's the real John Harold, actually.
Yeah, I'm the fake one. She texted me a picture of her, and then she's like, "This makes me happy," and I said, "Seems random," and she says, "Not random. She's smart." Like this is what the normal people think of Kristi Noem, and in a war of stories, like you always talk about, narrative warfare, the narrative, the story is often the only thing that matters. It is the only thing that matters. And if that's the case, like, holy shit. We have Mike Huckabee serving as the ambassador to Israel, I think I saw.
Yes.
He's a very, very household name to people my parents' age, like that normie demographic. if you want to call them that. I don't know. Like, who are we going to see next? Like, what's another normie name?
Mike
we see
Lindell, Pillow Ambassador.
Right? Yeah, I made a post today. I was like, when are we going to see Chris Christie named as the Secretary of the Department of Buffet Efficiency?
Yeah. Hey, we could use that. I'd be cool with it. But that's why, I use the terms that Chris was talking about in Story Hour. Like, we use these terms or make up these terms for a reason, to apply them to multiple scenarios, and then you can kind of relate them to each other. But I just mentioned translation layers, and another way I write about that often, specifically when it comes to people, specific figures, I call them cognitive ciphers. Like, these people, Donald Trump is one of them. I don't believe that the whole plan is Donald Trump. I don't believe that Donald Trump came up with the whole plan. I don't know if he came up with any of the plan. And that's not meant to be an insult. It's meant to say Donald Trump is serving the most vital role, even if his role is purely narrative. Because if his role is purely narrative, he's been a perfect symbol of what the MAGA and America First movement has been. And you need symbols because symbols provoke mandate. This is the thing that the enemy has known and used a lot more than we have used it. Barack Obama, hope and change. What was that? A symbol. What was Barack Obama? Nothing. He's not the guy that was ordering all these things. He was everyone on the right. I shouldn't even say right. People that know this stuff, like people in our community, they know that Barack Obama and Joe Biden, these people, they're puppets of a machine. Well, so are the Patriots. It's just that we think that they're fronts for, well, I think that they're fronts for a patriotic machine, a sovereign machine. But again, it's all about the narrative. So I'm not really that worried about what Hegseth and Kristi Noem are going to do. It's more about what is Trump's intention by deploying these names? What are the Patriots' intentions by deploying these names? And again, if you get a little jarred by your own reaction, which is a lot of us being like, what, the Fox guy and Kristi Noem, really? All right. I mean, then we start looking into it with an open mind. But the biggest thing that I look for is the negative indicators. First Hegseth article that I could find that had the most, that was the most trending thing on Google was the military-industrial complex freaking out. And then another one that I had pulled up here. Oh, I think it went away. You mentioned this, but this is what the media industrial complex is telling you. Loyalty. Loyalty is the thread. So
exactly
whatever these people end up doing, what is the signal that Donald Trump is sending to the American people, and more importantly, I think, to the deep state? You better polish up your resumes, and you better get your affairs in order, because we're coming for you.
Yeah. Like, so the Hegseth one, right? Or any of these appointments, like, we've become so accustomed to just like seeing a name and then going and looking, and they have like this rich history. Like, so Department of Homeland Security, Kristi Noem gets named in there. No background in Department of Homeland Security stuff, whatever. The article I saw, she sent, the National Guard to the border multiple times and helped out with that stuff from South Dakota, which was like a big deal, I think 8 times or something. But she has no like background in infrastructure or typical things you would expect from a nominee for Department of Homeland Security, right? The secretary. Every single one of those people that you would expect would more than likely be deep state. Like every one of those people would be like on all these councils, Council of Foreign Relations, Atlantic Council, all these things. They'd have all this woke education. They'd have been in the industry for 20, 30 years, all the while it's being perverse and they're being conditioned to do all these shit things. And then they come out of there and it's like, okay, we're gonna put a person with that background and all those previous connections to the industry in that position. We're not going to see the wholesale change that we need. But instead, you get a complete outsider who can clearly govern a country. She's based. She understands communists exist, which is, I fucking love that. I love that she called those 2 senators communists. You put her in charge of that, and even if she's just the face of that, that's all you need. That's all you need, because you can install everybody else underneath that and get that thing cleared out. But even just being the face of it and knowing she's a Trump loyalist and has political aspirations in the MAGA movement after this. So even if she's not like totally wholeheartedly a great person, which on the surface level she is, she at least has the political aspirations and self-interest to not fuck that up. And that might be all Trump needs as well. It's not even like pure loyalty. It's just like Kristi Noem wants to be president someday, and her only hope of that is being the president of the MAGA movement. And so you can't betray Trump in any way if you ever want that political future.
Right.
And that's all you need.
This is so weird, but I don't know. Maybe it's a God thing. Maybe this is a reverse proof of Chris being the Fed the whole time. I think that we've kind of aligned on that. Chris picked the movie 13 Days that I just referenced that we did when you guys are watching this last night. And the main character of 13 Days is Kenneth O'Donnell, played by Kevin Costner, who butchers a Boston accent, but whatever. It's a good movie.
I like Kevin Costner. Have you guys done Dances with Wolves yet?
No, we haven't. I like Kevin Costner too, but
minus his Liz Cheney thing that he did.
Yeah.
I like Kevin Costner as an actor prior to politics.
Yes, right. Reason I think of Kenneth O'Donnell, obviously he's fresh in my mind, but the biggest signal setter, and literally the signal setter of Donald Trump's recent deployments was the Susie Wiles pick. You guys said you talked about it on Saturday.
Yep.
The reason to me that was a deployment for two reasons. Number one, she was called the Ice Queen. It looks like she was maybe installed as a sleeper agent in the DeSantis campaign to perhaps
100%.
Destroy that thing, right? So
that destroys the kayfabe narrative.
It does.
Let's talk about that. But anyway.
Yeah, it does. At the very least, it looks like Susan Wiles is a sleeper agent of Donald Trump, a seek and destroy candidate, right? This is a spy war. The real deep state, they know we barely knew who Susie Wiles was, right? The deep state knows exactly who Susie Wiles was. And Donald Trump makes her chief of staff. Now, bring it back to Kenneth O'Donnell. He was a special advisor to John F. Kennedy, childhood friend of Bobby Kennedy, and he was the special assistant and appointments secretary to JFK from 1961 until his assassination, right? He was with Larry O'Brien and David Powers. He was part of Kennedy's close advisors dubbed the Irish Mafia. That was a derogatory term that the Joint Chiefs gave to the Kennedy brothers' close advisors. Why? Because they would hold private meetings away from the cabinet and away from the Joint Chiefs to come up with the real policy and who they should actually appoint. And then, to go a little further, after Kennedy's assassination, Kenneth O'Donnell ends up in the Lyndon Johnson administration, right? The Democrat who, deep state swamp creature, embeds us into the Vietnam War. 1965, Kenneth O'Donnell resigns. He resigned. Why did he resign? In order to try to win the Democratic nomination for governor in Massachusetts. He lost, and then he joins the 1968 Robert Kennedy campaign for president of the United States, and then Robert Kennedy gets killed. I bring all that up to say, the analogs to the Kennedy administration of what Trump is doing are nearly biblical, to the point where you've now got Susan Wiles, the Kenneth O'Donnell version under Trump, getting in here, except this time they're not killing Trump. They're not getting rid of O'Donnell, and then O'Donnell drank himself to death after Bobby got killed. But it's just amazing, the analogs, and when it's only looking more like that with Hegseth and these other nominations. But that first deployment of Susie Wiles, to me, looked like that was a narrative deployment. I think last week I had brought up the Politico article from earlier this spring that said the least known and most feared political operative in the United States is Susie Wiles. And now you've got all these shock names coming in to the administration.
It's super interesting. And I like the fact that some of these names are not as well known. I think that's a good thing. Recognizable names to this community anyway. Some of these names are very well known to the public, and everybody knows who they are. But in terms of popular common names for the roles they're given, I think it's a good thing to have outsiders come in here. It's just like Trump, a businessman running for president. We're having a National Guard former military guy, but most widely known as a newsman, as a Secretary of Defense, but he fucking loves America. He's got "We the People" tattooed on his arm, and now I want that tattoo.
And the Guantanamo thing is interesting that I saw you pointing out earlier too.
It is. He's very familiar, and he is defending the tactics used down there at Guantanamo Bay. It is interesting. I don't know, guys.
Have
Like
use of them again, perhaps.
Right. May that come in handy. It's been about an hour, man. I'm about ready to wind this down and wrap up. And I know you guys aren't used to that, and I do apologize, but we'll make up for it with this guard. Going to be well rested, excited, ready to go. But when it comes to these picks, I just want you guys to keep in mind we're gonna see a lot more names. Like, look at this list of names that we're about to see here is extensive. We've only scratched the surface. Some of these positions, like, I don't really put a whole lot of weight into. Like, I don't really care as much. There are some positions that I'm like, this is where deep state is heavily embedded. Other ones are more like, okay, this is where the woke ideology is heavily embedded. It's all deep state, but some are more, militant than others, like even literally. And so, like, some of the ones I'm looking for, obviously defense we got in there. HHS might be interesting. Justice, like whoever he picks as the AG, that'll be an interesting pick. Curious to see where, like, some people like Cash get fit in here. Like, say, I expect him to be involved. He's been very close to Trump recently. I could honestly see him as AG. I could see Whitaker too. He was in there for a spell. DNI too. I could see Cash being DNI.
DNI might that'd be interesting. A little switcheroo with Ratcliffe. Some of these, what's kind of funny, the one that leaps out to me is education. I can't help but look at the mimetic nature of the Doge narrative deployment, Department of Government Efficiency with Elon Musk and Vivek, and think, are we going to get a Javier Milei replay or rerun? And are all of these roles going to be filled? Or are some of these roles going to cease to exist?
That's
Javier Milei famously, whether he's, a WEF guy or not, I'm just saying, according to the central narrative, Javier Milei comes in there day one and slashes the Department of Public Education afuera, like the famous
Trump's gonna promise that too,
video.
didn't he?
Yes, and I mean that's what the Department of Government Efficiency is meant to take a hammer to the deep state. I mean, to the administrative state. We would call it the deep state. Well, do we need all of these agencies? Some would say that the Department of Education should be abolished entirely. So I wouldn't hold your breath for every single role to be slashed. Or alternatively, what you're saying about pump the brakes about some of these names, let's say you guys see a name that you're just like, I don't like it, it's weird, it's clownish. Hey, maybe that means that's a department that's about to get axed.
It could be. And think of some of the interesting things here too. If Marco Rubio gets put in as, or not, was it him? I can't remember which one, but like some of these, there's political ramifications here too. Like, you're removing a senator from a state, a Republican state. The governor gets to appoint the next senator. There's talk of Laura Trump being named as the next senator in Florida.
That's interesting.
Doesn't even have to go through an election. Gets named as a senator.
Right.
What happens in South Dakota if they have their governor come out? I don't even know how that works, so I should probably research that. But there's interesting ramifications. Zeldin ran for governor, had it stolen from him, I think in 2022, maybe even 2020. Maybe it might have been both years. No, couldn't have been both years. But he's definitely been in the political realm, like coming out of the House. Yeah. And then what does this mean for him? Now he's back in the political game. Like, there's some strategery here.
Yeah,
that is underneath the surface level observations that we don't even understand, like the ramifications of yet. And so that's some of the stuff I'm keeping an eye on too, like some of these other picks. We have a very slim majority in the House, bigger majority in the Senate.
Yeah, but
still, some of these picks could restructure how we view like all across the government too. Like, so
yeah, and tangential to this is the administrative state, appointments. Tangential to this, I was reading a Jonathan Turley article yesterday talking all about, speaking of reform, the Supreme Court. Now, obviously, we already have the Supreme Court. Trump has Kavanaugh, Gorsuch, Barrett on there. But Alito's getting up there in age. Clarence Thomas is getting up there in age. Many people think Sotomayor is not going to stay there for long. So that's two we think MAGA judges, and then one of the liberals. Trump could have, now that he's going to be back in, he's going to get to appoint potentially 3 more justices. That's going to give him 6 between his two terms, right? And the key there would be he's going to provide the shielding to the country, really, of allowing Alito and Thomas to step down, but to do so safely while installing two more Supreme Court justices that are probably in their 40s or something like that. I mean, we're looking at, when Trump talks about the golden age, you can see it developing. And the reason I thought of the Supreme Court is installing loyalists there, loyalists to us, not to Donald Trump. And more so, what was the big Supreme Court ruling that rocked the deep state this year? It was Chevron deference.
Yep.
So any moves that are made in the administrative state, the Supreme Court just opened season on the administrative state heading into next year.
Yep. And the really exciting thing for me too, everything you just said there is 100% accurate, spot on, I'll say, and I was actually listening.
I could see that you were listening.
I was listening. What's so exciting to me about this whole thing is if you couple all this stuff that Trump is looking to do with election reform, okay, so like if we actually get to a place where our elections can be somewhat trusted, in person, same day, paper ballots only,
verifiable by us.
Yep, watermark ballots, whatever it is, like whatever his plans are for the election system, and you got to know he has one. If you couple that with the reforms he's proposing, such as the Department of Government Efficiency, the weeding out all the deep state, the woke ideology, all this stuff, the transformation we're about to see with our government, and this is right in line with like the switch theory stuff, everything, like it's going to be insane,
like shocking,
like it's going to shock. Yeah, it's going to shock the system. Bitcoin will be at $1 million in years. Like, and not a financial advisor. Badlandsmedia.tv/Bitcoin or /river, whichever one. Get your Bitcoin sats. It's going to the moon. Like, no shit. But like, if you couple this and his vision for the government and trimming it down, trimming the fat, all this stuff, all these reforms, couple that with the actual election form, you will never, like, it'll be hundreds of years. There won't even be a Democratic Party.
No.
They'll have nothing to run on.
Q Drop said, you are watching the systematic destruction of the old guard and death of the D Party.
And the funny thing, too, is like, okay, death of the Democratic Party, the Republican Party died, too, when Trump took it over with MAGA. They no longer exist. I was looking up when Dirk McGurkin had that reply to me about, why do we even need a director of the CIA when, we're going to dismantle it anyway. I was trying to look for actual examples of Trump, like a hostile takeover or something where he went in, he didn't just dismantle or destroy or demolish a building, and he actually like reformed it and rebuilt it or remodeled it. And all the articles I saw was Trump's hostile takeover of the Republican Party. And that's exactly what it was. And I was like, holy shit, that's so true. The Republican Party, as it used to exist, is dead. It is no longer there.
Trump. Yep.
It's Trump's party. It's not even Trump's, it's the MAGA party. It's the
ours.
American People's Party.
Yep.
And so if you couple that like with destruction of the D Party, which that happens, it's a sifting process, as you always say. It's a natural byproduct of all of Trump's vision for America and his reforms with election fraud. That's the key thing, because their only survival mechanism right now is election fraud.
Yeah.
So this really is some exciting shit.
Yeah, and I obviously always talk about narrative deployments for a reason, and we talked about this Sunday night when we were playing the Reagan clips. That incredible that are Reagan, MAGA came from the Reagan administration. Trump repurposed it and boosted that thing into the MAGA is coded into the human genome now. Like, really, the human narrative worldwide, everybody in the world of every creed, faith, religion, language knows what that means.
I got that.
I think that, one of the narrative patterns I noticed in the last couple of years is Trump increasingly sort of shifting from MAGA to America first and I think he's taking us, to your point about the Republican Party. I think he sees the Republican Party because he saw it as the building that could potentially be restored. But long term, it's not about that, to your point. I think he's saying it's about the first principles. What are the first principles? America first. The first principle is America first. I think he's trying to move us into a future where we're not even talking about parties because there's not going to be any Democrats. What does that also mean? It means nobody's going to be running as a Republican Because why would you? I think there's going to be the death of parties. And as a former Democrat and as, a disillusioned Democrat, I've never become a Republican. I've been very public about that. I have no desire to identify with a political party. We never should have had them in the first place. I think Trump has used it to our advantage, but where we're going, they'd say we don't need roads. We do not need political parties where we're going. We just need people who want to do what's right for the country.
And that's a great point too, because if you get rid of the party system, like you get rid of a lot of the corruption, you get a lot of the pay for play,
no primaries.
You get rid of a lot of the bullshit that has poisoned politics for a century or more.
Yeah,
like
centuries.
Yeah, absolutely. I want to play one clip, just a little tribute to our boy Blue.
Oh yeah.
And then, actually, before I do that, I want to show you guys a little trick. If you want to be famous on Twitter, this is what you got to do. Go to donaldjtrump.com/agenda47, and you'll find all these videos here
from
all
2
these
years
videos
ago.
that first started coming out in December of 2022. The first one was December of 2022. Okay. The most recent one is, let me find the most recent one. Hold on. Okay. It's on this page. The most recent one was December. So for a year, from December of 2022 to December of 2023, Trump was posting all sorts of videos about his agenda that he's planning to unleash upon America in his next administration. You go and take whatever video you want, whatever one you think is interesting, and you just say breaking with an emoji, fire,
shit.
or holy shit, that's good. Anything to show some sort of excitement and really draw the eyes in. You need the emoji though with it. Fire alarm, fire emoji, whatever it is.
Right.
Exclamation points, that works too. And then you post Trump reveals whatever agenda on cartels.
That's it.
And you'll go nuts. It doesn't matter that the video is years old, that people were talking about years ago. You will go semi-viral on Twitter, and everybody will worship you. So
that's it. That's the hack.
That's the hack. So I just wanted to show you guys that some Badlands hacks, even though
if
nobody on Badlands does this.
The unfortunate thing is that if you're self-respecting, you can't do that, and you don't get all those cute little retweets, unfortunately.
Okay, now I'll show you the.
At least our friend Storm has arrived. Called himself out for doing it, because when I saw him come across my feed, he posted one of these yesterday. It was like,
Storm.
Oh my god! But then he caught himself, and he was like, "LOL, that was from 2 years ago. My bad." But Storm, come on, man.
You got to put that. It was in the original tweet. If it was original
Joe
tweet,
Rambo territory.
That's Fed territory for sure.
I
saw
it was.
I
not
saw a
the
video.
Tweet.
Okay, so Patrick Gunnels, he's making the lotion tour. He's going on as many networks as he can to sell his lotion, and he was on Joe Rambo's show 2 days ago, and then today he was on News Treason, and I think both Joe Rambo and News Treason are going to be at GART. So, but anyway,
still fits.
Joe Rambo was trying to perfect his cover before GART, and he was allegedly filming from within a crane he was operating a crane while he was on stream with them. And so, to me, it more so confirms his Fed status, FBI.
Why would you be so desperate to prove to us that you're just any old crane operator? We literally have a famous crane operator in our audience who's never once been in chat from a crane.
Who?
Crane op.
Well, you don't know if it's operating a crane. He might have been running an op with the Bird crane.
For over a year, I did not know that he was a crane operator. I thought that was a reference to the Bird and ops.
It literally just connected with me right now, because
really?
when we were talking about the dock workers.
So then you're dumber than me. Yeah,
I'm way dumber than you. When we were talking about the dock workers, he was like, "Oh, I worked in the union in California for 30 years."
He operates cranes, machines.
And I never put that together. So.
I didn't either, man. It's tricky.
Yeah.
So I've become blinded to the operator to me.
I've become blinded to Rumble usernames because some of them are so hard and ridiculous. Yeah, and then you'll get something like that. Yeah, John's a dick. Yeah, those are a little too on the nose.
Hey, just a little shout out to all the disinfo operatives and guys, Media Matters guys, woke societies, and all your sock accounts. Just point a piece of advice. if you're going to come over and try to make it seem like the whole world hates us, don't make new usernames, log into old sock accounts that you already made back the last time you tried to do this, and it will be a lot more believable than making new usernames about how bad and evil we are. And always remember to log out of your sock account before you reply to it in the comments section.
Yep.
Just want to give it, as the Joker said in The Dark Knight Rises, this town deserves a better class of criminal, and we deserve a better class of feds coming after us.
Yeah. And to those who are like honestly upset, did I address this at the beginning? I don't think I did. I think I forgot. Kyle, obviously not on this episode. If you're curious as to why, you can go watch the Defected episode from this last Sunday. It's the last episode of Defected. Burning Bright's still going to be in the time slot, but we're just not sure what direction we're going to figure that out at GART this week. And if you get your virtual ticket, maybe you can help us decide. But for those honestly like curious, like Kyle left the show, like you coming and saying like, oh, you got to fix this and go, like we didn't fire Kyle. Kyle left.
Yeah.
So no amount of you saying like whatever, any conspiracy theories you have about other people that have left Badlands, like none of this is connected. It's Kyle. Just go watch Defected. Kyle left the Badlands, and that's it. We're gonna keep being us and moving on, and we wish Kyle the best. We're praying for him. We love him, and who knows? Maybe he'll come back.
Yeah, we know
someday.
there are earnest people who are upset. There are also other people who are
not earnest.
The same people from months ago in their sock accounts, and we know which ones they are.
Yep. Yeah, we got them mapped out. We know the Rumble people, folks. We know.
Mm-hmm.
I text with Chris. We can figure out who's who when we need to. But this is a little shout out to Our Boy Blue, and then we're gonna wrap it up. And I'll let you respond to this.
Is it gonna have Sarah McLachlan over it? Because I need one of those with Our Boy Blue at some point.
We'll work on it. Actually, I did one of those. I had one of those
Did
made.
you?
Yes.
Wow.
For you all to know about it, okay? So we found out over the weekend, thanks to Nancy Pelosi's interview with the New York Times on their podcast, The Daily, that the plan was to get Biden to, step down from the re-election bid. And then they were all planning an open primary. But Biden, 30 minutes after he dropped out of the race, decided to endorse Kamala Harris as a middle finger to the Democratic Party. The other thing to know about Joe Biden is that their internal polling before he dropped out of the race indicated that if he stayed in the race, Donald Trump was going to win even more electoral college votes than he won against Kamala Harris. But they didn't care. Okay, he remained in the race until it was, in my opinion, already incredibly late. And so he set up Kamala Harris for failure. He set up the Democratic Party for failure. But I also want to be clear that the Democratic Party specializes in failure. They're incompetent, they're pathetic, and they lied to the American people and thought that they would get away with it. The cover-up on Biden's mental decline was very much real. And the fact that the party overall felt the need to lie to the American people and their own base goes to show you how little respect they have for their own voters.
All right, last two things.
What do you
Our
think?
Boy Blue. I mean, man, we'll never know. It's one of those things we'll never know. But by hook or by crook, every single move that blessed deep state soul made went exactly according to a plan. And I am a big believer that was very intentional. I saw I don't know if you had posted this, but I saw the AI video going around a few days ago of the fake phone call between Biden and Obama when Biden reveals his, and it's like, it's a meme, but man, if it isn't realistic to me, it's just, it's sort of, when you're in the conspiracy world, like everybody watching this show is, when you've been branded that, one of the sort of logical frameworks we get hit with most often is the idea of Occam's razor, right? Like the simplest explanation is often the correct one. Here's the thing. People usually don't apply that to the conspiracy theory. And often the conspiracy theory is significantly simpler than the idea that everything worked out biblically perfectly for Donald Trump. So that's why we talked about this on Sunday. I would never say full control, but I think we had control over the key vectors that we needed to, and the president, even the fake president, would be one of those vectors to me. But I don't think we had control of Kamala. I think she just gloriously flamed out.
I could not agree more. And that video especially kind of highlights, like, I don't believe Biden's a white hat working for Trump.
Yeah. That's not, you don't need that.
But it is a little weird that, like, he comes out and endorses her, and then they're like, okay, well, fuck, now we have to go with her.
They
Like,
had
we
to
have
defend her. Yeah.
you have no choice.
Mm-hmm.
So what does that tell? Like, that's that reporting, if true, has been the closest I have been to convinced that he may actually have been, like, working for Trump or under control. But I don't believe that, but it's the closest I've been. So
the drops that, and I know many Q followers have said this, but I certainly am one of the believers of it. If the drops are real, if they are trying to express and give us hints as to future plans, at the time they were coming out, the references to a father's love for his children, most of us took to be referencing Donald Trump. I firmly believe that those drops are referencing Joe Biden at this point. I think that you could still be a swamp creature, but hey, there's many stories of this in myth, in the Bible, in history, of a swamp creature just doing that one last run to repent. And who knows? Doesn't mean you're not a swamp creature, but did he want his kids pardoned? Does he want to, maybe he's a swamp creature who did love his kids and he didn't want to. Anyway, there's many ways you can slice it, but either way, he served his role perfectly. He was hilarious, and I will cherish the Our Boy Blue days.
Yeah, I'll play the video here for the outro of the Sarah McLachlan, because I had Green Star make a video for us a while ago on this when he dropped out. But
all right.
Anyway, final sales pitch for Gart. What's your best pitch?
Well, obviously I think there's a few single days if anyone's in the area, but this is mostly virtual. All the reviews we get of the virtual is that it's a great time. You feel like you're as close to being there as you can. You're not just watching a stream. If you do buy virtual, get into Telegram. Download Telegram. Join the Telegram chat. It's going to make it feel like such a more interactive experience with your fellow virtual attendees. And keep in mind, the people that are at GART, they're also in the Telegram group. So that's what a lot of the fun stuff comes, right? You'll see videos, you'll see photos. And to anybody who just wants a preview of what a GART's like, the virtual is a great way to do it. And man, when people come there, like we do the panels, and the panels are great. But that is not what people talk about of what they love about GART. It's not just meeting us and hanging out with us. It's the groups we see. This will be my 5th one, even though it's the 6th one we've done. I've gone to 5 of the 6. And now that we're 5 or 6 in, you can see the groups that have been forming at these GARTs. I mean, at the last GART, we had our first proposal between people that met at GARTs. So you are going to feel people on your own power level. No more suppressing your power level. It's a game changer. And John and I, and on the shows, we've been talking for months like, man, this might end up having to be a mass Badlands therapy session. And thank God we get to just have an awesome party no matter what lies ahead.
We're literally going to have a DJ there and a dance party and a photo booth and all that stuff. So with the virtual ticket, you'll be able to see all that. But like you said, there's these groups forming, and the groups form because a lot of people meet at previous GARTs. But one of the things I love the most is how welcoming everybody is. Like, there will be somebody who's been to every single GART, and even the Thread Fest we had before that. So like, this will be their 8th time coming to a conference, and every time they're just like, they're so welcoming and friendly. And whether you're a first timer or a veteran, like it doesn't matter. Like you're finally meeting the people you've been engaging with in the chat. You're finally like becoming part of that community officially. And there's a little level of that with the virtual ticket as well, and almost a significant one, because there's so many different like offshoots of the Badlander groups in every state.
Right.
And
that's where you guys can get connected to all those regional ones and all that.
Like there are almost every state. We should do an accounting of this, but I'm pretty sure almost every state has a Badlander group right now where they get together once a month, maybe once every other month, and it's just other like-minded individuals, just America First individuals, and you kind of realize you're not alone. Like these are people that you're going to get along with. They become lifelong friends. Like the engagement we had at the last GART, that was the second group that we've had, or second couple now. Like the first one already got married. I think they technically met at Threadfest, but they fell in love at a GART, and then they later got married. Now we have one that got engaged at Threadfest. Engaged at GART, met at GART, all those things. It's just awesome. Like you find your people, you get to engage with us. We're not the type that we don't have like a roped off speaker area as some other conferences do. We don't do that. We engage with you guys. That's why we do it. We want to engage with you guys. So get your virtual ticket, support us, and join our community. And you're not going to regret it. It's great. So we'll close it out with the Biden clip that you somehow forgot. I don't know how this is.
Yeah, I don't know.
Incredible.
Man,
but
I must have known about it subconsciously. That's why I requested it.
But anyway, see you in a couple days, bro.
All right, man.
Badlandsmedia.tv/events. Catch y'all later.
I just have one thing to say. Hang on here.
Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, dear Valen. Happy birthday to you.
Brock and I think it's a right for people to have bad health care.
God save the Queen, man.
We'll teach Donald Trump a valuable lesson. Don't mess with the women in America unless you want to get the benefits. My grandpa was named Ambrose Finnegan. His kitchen table I learned. Well, it is what it is because he was who he is. That's why it is what it is. True international effort to pressure, isolate, and punish China. Donald care. Donald Trump thinks health care.
Get off your golf course and out of the sand bunker.
Well, I'm sick and tired of smart guys.
COVID has taken this year, just since the outbreak, it's taken more than 100 years. Look, so you go ahead and you stack spaghetti sauce at a store and in a supermarket. You control the guy or the woman who brings out the carts on a forklift. What happened? When you think about it, more lives this year than any other year for the past 100 years. Even Dr. King's assassination did not have the worldwide impact that George Floyd's death did.
It's all within our power.
Once there was a dark